All right. Hello, hello. Hi, guys. Okay. My kids are filtering down the basement. I hope they stay. They've been both threatened and bribed, so let's see how this goes. Hey, guys. Hi, Billy. Hi. Okay, let me see where I am. Okay, so if the chat is working for you, you can click on the little word bubble on the bottom or the side, depending on what device you're using. Thank you guys for coming. Okay, we're going to dive in because it's quiet. So first thing, what people are coming in, was it Meg? Yeah, I think Meg just asked in Slack what our next month's topics are going to be. And thank you. I have been meaning to share this. Okay, so I'm just going to write it in the chat. I'm working on putting together the book list and everything. Of course, next month we're going to be reading the book we were supposed to be reading this month. So in August, we are talking about woman, capital W, mostly like what Edith Stein taught on that. So we're talking about women. September, hi Becky. September, we are going to have a little bit of a it's not going to be as intense because I know a lot of people got kids going back to school, and September just seems to be a busy time. So we are going to be doing order, and we are going to be reading Mother's Rule of Life, which I know a lot of people have already read and is also free on I think that was the Formed website. So I thought, well, that's nice to have something that everybody can access for free. Okay. Things are kind of crazy. All right. I'm muting everybody, but you're welcome to unmute yourself if you want to talk for a sec, okay? Just because I know. Let's do. Am I private messaging? Okay. And then, so that's September. We're going to talk about order. We're going to talk about setting goals. We're going to share like our rule of life because I really desperately want to get back into a better organized. And I thought September would be fun if we talk about order because it kind of give us a chance. You know, we talked about prayer. We talked about trust and purity. But give us a chance to actually like figure out how we're going to live these things, like where we're going to fit prayer in. And, you know, how we're going to just take these ideas and actually live them out. So that will be September. Sorry, am I not posting this to everybody? There, everyone. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. This chat is confusing me. So I'm going to write it again. So September is order. That's going to be our topic, kind of planning, goal setting, figuring out where we're going to settle these things in. And then the last month that I have figured out is October. And we are going to be talking about friendship, which is a little bit of a big, just kind of a big blanket term. We're going to talk about like conversation, reclaiming ourselves through distraction. When I did like a survey of people, they talked a lot about like how, so Heather said, are we going to read Who Does He Say You Are? That's for next month. I'm going to give you a document with this all later today. We'll make it so clear. So that's going to fit perfectly with our discussion of what is woman. Yeah, Becky. So September is order. October is friendship. We're going to talk about both building female friendships, having friendships in our marriage, what might be lacking in our friendship in our marriage, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of more like relationships. Can't hear you for some reason. Other people can hear me, right? Am I crazy? Okay, good. So, Grace, I would check settings. Oh, good. So if other people can hear me, it might be your settings. Okay, we're going to dive in. I have my earbuds in, so if you want to jump in, I'm hoping other people want to jump in and talk, because I'm going to go through and answer just some questions that were in Slack, although people have been doing great. So Heather said I had to click the button on the left, on the bottom left on microphone to hear. So I hope that helps you, Grace. Bottom left. Good luck. Everyone's on different device, so it's hard to tell. Okay. Let's see here. So these are some questions. Oh, and I had a link. I wanted to get your reaction about, just a second. Did anybody see the new marketing campaign that Planned Parenthood came out with? Yeah, this is it. Well, I'm not sure that this is exactly the link I want to share, but anybody see this? It's awful, and it's so, so awful and sad. Here is the link if you want to check it out. Oh shoot, okay. Not just to her. Okay, there. It's awful. And I think it's especially poignant to think about as we're talking about married sex and what it actually is and why it's important and why we need to purify it. So in essence, if you haven't heard it, the new Planned Parenting campaign it's just basically freedom to the F word. I'm not going to say that word, but that's their whole marketing campaign now, freedom to the F word, which is just so disheartening because if you think about what that, like the connotations of that word versus what, marital intimacy, intercourse, even sex, like that word implies some sort of violence and basically the absence of love. To me, it's just really convicting that what we have in marriage, what we are trying to purify in marriage is so important in a world that's so lost. Anyways, go ahead and read that link and become completely devastated for the world that we live in. Okay, so convicted that we are living a radical choice by being Catholic married women. Okay, so feel free if you want to jump in here at all. I'm going to go through some questions that people put in the Slack group. So the first one, Marianne brought this up. I thought it was a really good question. She asked if, so in the video, and this is probably just clearing up something that I said in the video that was not perfectly clear. She asked, I made a statement like sex is important to men and oftentimes they don't feel fully loved without it. First of all, that is like a statement that is a stereotypical statement, so your husband might not fall into that, but it's kind of this generalized concept that might apply, and it's something to consider. And she asked, well, like, how does that apply to times when you're forced to abstain or times when, like before marriage, when you cannot be intimate? So I thought that was an excellent question, and like, do they not feel loved then? And I think the answer is like, first of all, in marriage, we're all called to learn mortification, both in marriage and out of marriage.
You're supposed to be in your room.
So anyways, so that's important to remember, right? But also, I think it's also important to remember that in marriage, there's times where we are going to be forced to receive love that's not like in the ideal way. For example, I'm in a really busy time in marriage right now where we don't necessarily have time to sit and chat all the time like I might want to. And we don't have that sort of intimate connection that I really crave. Sometimes I feel like we're ships passing in the night. And I feel sometimes like the only thing we have some days is sex because that's when we're both together and that's something that we can do without forethought or, anything else. So there's that. And likewise, men must learn to live through seasons where they might not be receiving love in the ideal way, where, you're abstaining for various reasons, for health reasons, whatever it might be, or of course, during the time leading up to marriage. So it's just an idea that like, we all have to live through seasons where we're not receiving love in the ideal way. But, and I know that this is a video that's kind of like taken out of the Catholic Wife course. So if there might be some concepts that aren't fully developed, but the whole premise, if you read like Love and Responsibility by JP2, the whole premise is that we're called to love first. To think of their needs first. And in a marriage where both people are thinking about the other person's needs first instead of their own, then everyone's happy, right? If I'm sitting here thinking about you, how can I love you? I know sex is important to you. So therefore, I'm going to make sure your needs met. And if he's looking at me thinking, oh, okay, I know sex might not be as important to you. You need conversation and eye contact and a sweet gesture. If they're thinking about that and I'm thinking about his needs, then everybody's happy. And of course, stars are aligned and we're all perfect and sinless, so it's hard to get there. But so it was just that. Realize it's important to your husband. Realize that if you have like this amazing romantic date and you come home and you have great conversation and the kids aren't there and you feel so in love and happy, but if you just like roll over and go to sleep, it might feel like a bit of an incomplete evening to him, if that makes sense, right? For some men, and again, total stereotype, for some men, that's like an important part. Just like it might be an important part to us that we talk, that he listens, that kind of stuff, okay? Okay, so, okay, another thing. So Grace was I'm not going to make you come on. If you want to, you can come on, Grace. But she's been so sweet, being so open and honest, listening to what other people have to say. If you haven't read the thread in this month's topic, you can go through and read. People are really, I'm not going to go into detail what people have been sharing there because it's their story. But I think she's bringing up what's a really important point to consider. And there's no easy answers for these things. But she's coming from the perspective of someone that doesn't necessarily enjoy sex. And it's kind of an ongoing, it's not like, oh, we're in our first month of marriage and I haven't figured it out. It's an ongoing situation. And so I just think it's an important thing to consider. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor or anything. But, we just kind of have to sometimes consider the situation. Is there healing to have here? And is the healing actually fixing this so that we can enjoy it? Or is it fixing it so he understands? Or I don't know. But I think whatever our sexual situation is, there's probably some healing to strive for. I know there is for us, whether it's just we need to communicate about something better, or I need to really work to not just lay down and go straight to sleep every night, which is a hard thing for me. But whatever it is, just work to communicate. I just want to plant some seeds. And I know I said this in the end of the video, but I firmly believe that investing in like medical, even if you're going in for like a monthly check, if you discuss with your doctor, especially if it's painful, I think discussing with the doctor about those things is not like a vanity or something, that you should just learn to live without. I think it's an important thing to talk about, whether you're still having children, whatever. So I think just talking about, maybe there won't be any answers. Sometimes there are. I've actually had a friend who had a very mild surgery that helped her. Sometimes things just are a little too tight or whatever. Not to go into too many details, but again, you don't have to do anything. But I think sometimes if you think like this is really impacting our relationship, he feels like garbage, I feel like garbage, maybe opening up a conversation with the doctor is worth it. And then the second thing to consider, and I hope that just watching this video and watching me talk about a whole bunch of awkward things is a little bit helpful. But the second thing that I found interesting in the research is that just being able to talk about sex will help you enjoy it more. And of course, that's not going to cure major problems. But I actually grew up in a situation where we talked about sex a lot in marriage. My mom is like a super product of the 70s, hitchhiked, lived in communes. And she unfortunately, through all of this, was raped, unfortunately, which is like bizarrely common. It's terrible. But anyways, because of this, my mom was always very open about like putting yourself in certain situations and protecting yourself and what sex should be like. I also know that my parents didn't wait until they were married, and they wrestled with a lot of those ghosts through their marriage. So I remember even in my teenage years, I remember my mom being open about that and talking about that, which I think I was one of 4 girls, convicted us to take that very seriously, because we saw lived out how those ghosts still affect you, 20 years into your marriage. So anyways, my mom is kind of like an open book, like shares too much. So that's the situation I grew up in. A lot of people I can tell in the group grew up in a different situation where it was either like not talked about or were just said to be bad, like in an effort to keep you from losing your purity. They made it sort of a shame-based thing. So anyways, if you feel like that, sometimes we carry those things into our marriage. I had a good friend that went through that, and I remember we kind of got married around the same time. And I remember she lamented to me about a month into her marriage that, like, a month ago, it was like, I was supposed to live like a nun, like chaste and, don't look at me too intensely. And now I'm supposed to like know how to do this and enjoy this. And it's just such a change. And I think that a lot of people struggle with that. So if that's the case, I've had a couple people privately message me. I would love to offer whatever wisdom I might have. Also, I refer a lot to, and I know people were talking about this, I refer to a book by Dr. Gregory Popcak, who is a great Catholic psychologist. He and his wife, they also have given many talks. The book that I refer to a lot is called Holy Sex, but he wrote a lot of books, and he's very good about talking about sex and shame and all that stuff. If you want to just Amazon him, there's lots of great books. He also has given lots of great talks in Catholic parishes. I know he recently spoke for our diocese here in Kansas City. Anyways, he's great to talk about, can maybe open up those conversations. So all I'm saying, and I know I'm saying this too long, is just that if this is a struggle and a hardship, it's not a vanity to invest in it. It's not like, you shouldn't waste time on figuring out how to heal these wounds or physically enjoy something or, Okay, and having said all that, the final thing I'm going to say is that we do need to remember that the most blessed marriage that ever took place on earth didn't include any sex at all. Of course, it was the Virgin Mary and St. Joseph. There's also other saints that took vows of chastity. I think we need to remember that that's a radical choice. It's not necessarily the way that God designed marriage to be. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any children. But if for some reason, if a physical injury happens to you or your spouse, or, again, I know we all probably know people that have extreme reasons for avoiding pregnancy, like if getting pregnant would kill the woman or whatever, that abstinence coming into a marriage, it can still be a holy thing. But I think it's something that needs to be really deliberately chosen, not just like, oh, I'm not really in the mood ever, so let's just not. It needs to be like a deliberate choice, not just a lazy choice, which is sometimes easier to make. So blah, blah, blah. Okay. Next. Okay. Ellie, excellent point. I too, when I first read this book about holy sex, I was amazed at what is actually permissible in Catholic sex. I remember hearing that during marriage prep, that like, oh, you'd be surprised what's all allowed because it's a lot. But anyways, but it really is a lot. And, kind of knowing, oh, Ellie, you want to come on? Come talk to me. How you doing?
I don't know how to
what?
On. I don't know how. Yeah. So, I don't know if anybody else can hear me or not, but
you can. I think we can.
We're doing marriage mentoring. So my husband kind of twisted my arm into doing it, but I'm so glad that we're doing it. We just finished our first couple, and we had sex and NFP night last night. So I was like, I drink a glass of wine. I don't know. Like I probably was blushing, but anyhow, they had no idea about what was permissible, and I'm so glad that the timing of your video was this week. Obviously, we did not go into that much detail, but just kind of saying where the church is coming from and, what the role of it is in marriage and how important it is. So I was so thankful to have that resource, because when we did pre-Cana, they were like, here's an NFP pamphlet thrown in our face. And we're like, okay, if you have any questions, whatever. That was basically it. So I'm hoping that in the mentoring, when it's like one-on-one, we can have more in-depth conversations and actually answer some questions. So
yeah. Oh, totally. And I think I mean, it's like I said, it's strange, especially if like you and your husband have made the commitment to remain pure until marriage, then you might not have, you're kind of like, and I think it's a beautiful thing to learn with your husband, that's beautiful. But there's also the point where I know a lot of people that have actually done things that they shouldn't be doing just because they didn't know. And in fact, one of the questions that came up, someone private messaged me this, and I saw it also in the threads. People ask like, okay, during times of abstinence, is it okay if, okay, let's see, what are the words I'm comfortable using? Okay, is it okay if like the man gets the woman to climax without him, if that makes sense there? I think we all know. And, and it seems like a sweet gesture, like, oh, what a selfish man that he would be willing to allow her to do that without him. But the answer, of course, is like, no, that doesn't fulfill the one rule, that every act is life-giving or open to life. And so I just feel like, you're like, oh, no sex till marriage. But then once you get into marriage, it's like, whatever. And then, anyways.
Well, yeah. And also, I mean, a lot of the millennials that we're seeing in marriage mentoring are having sex, like legit are having sex, are living together, etc. So it's also really interesting to try to make the case, like, for, what the difference in married sex is and why it's so beautiful and why it's so important and why maybe being chased from this point on out until today is the way to go. So you obviously don't want to alienate somebody, but at the same time, you kind of got to be like, this is the thing.
I know. You want to get married in the Catholic Church. Well, here is.
This is the way, you don't want to dumb it down or say the wrong thing, but you also, want to connect with them. So it's been very interesting.
Totally. And I know two couples actually that were converted by, they were like nominally Catholic, wanted to get married in the church, but I know they got for sure converted by their like marriage prep couple for sure. We're just like, wait.
Like flipping them Matthew Kelly books, like, here's some podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. I know my friend Maggie, she was living with her husband, or with her soon-to-be husband. They went to marriage prep, and she said she was just so touched because she was kind of like, felt like she was out there twisting in the wind forever. And she was just so touched, she said, when she realized that the church cared, that like, because it sometimes feels nosy, like, oh my gosh, the church has rules about what we can do in the bedroom. That feels a little nosy. But she said she was just so touched that she didn't realize the church cared about her that way, that they cared about her body and her dignity. And anyways, and then they like left their first marriage prep meeting and she moved out. So
I love it.
So there you go. So go.
There you go. Sorry, I sidetracked your coffee chat, but
yeah, no, it's great. It's great. If anyone else wants to jump on, I feel like this is nicer. Zoom is nicer because people can come on, especially for these topics that like I am not an expert. So Ellie, very good. Okay. All right. We're going to move on. The next thing I want to talk about, and we can kind of start here and then move over to the Slack group, is I thought it'd be nice to talk about NFP. I know we've been talking a little bit about it. And in a lot of people's sort of summary of the role of sex in their marriage, NFP played a huge role just because like especially after losses, being open to life and loss, because, NFP is not contraception, as many of us with surprise babies know. And then also the periods of abstinence. I remember, and this kind of goes with what Ellie was saying, during my own marriage prep, I remember going to like the weekend in my diocese, in our archdiocese, we had like a weekend prep. And they talked about NFP for like a minute. And they mostly just showed like this picture of this happy couple that had, I think, like 1 or 2 children sitting in a field of daisies, perfectly happy. And that was like the image of natural family planning, which my husband and I still laugh about because it is not a walk in the daisies. And usually if you, unless you have struggles, you know, it's not just the 2 perfect children. It's a couple more surprises. We want to have a big family, so it's not like that for us. But it's just kind of this like, oh, that's the image of NFP. It doesn't really feel that way. So I know people have some questions, and I thought I'm gonna go start a thread in Slack because I know my little nosy-eared children will be coming up here any minute because Legos only hold attention for so long. But I'm gonna go over to Slack. We're gonna start a little conversation over there about NFP methods that you might use, NFP questions you might have. And the big points, I actually interviewed this really sweet girl for the podcast yesterday, even though that podcast episode won't be out for a month. But she is like she's funny. She's like the stay-at-home mom that kind of loves Humana Vitae, and she wanted to come talk about it, and she was so knowledgeable, and she was an NFP practitioner herself. So I might actually have her come in the group and come chat with us. But anyways, she just was like on fire for what NFP is. And her big thing that she kept preaching is that NFP is not Catholic contraception. It's something completely different. So, and I know that's hard because I definitely want control over those things, but it's not God's plan. So anyways, so thank you guys for being here. I know I don't have all of the answers. I definitely do not. But I hope this just opened up conversations. And I know a lot of people have talked about watching these videos with their husbands, which is awesome. I also watched them with my husbands, and I think it was Alex in the Slack group was talking about how you kind of, when you don't really know the rules, you kind of end up making up your own rules. And she said like her husband would be happy because some things that they had decided weren't okay actually are okay. And again, it has to do with comfort. It has to do with how you feel loved and respected. If doing something makes you feel used and awful, then I don't care what the church says, you know, it's in your relationship. You should make that decision yourself. But anyways, watch it with your husbands. Chances are they don't know either. Sometimes we think just because they're men, they kind of know, but my husband didn't either. So anyways, it helps. It helps a lot. So, okay, I'm rambling. I need to go splash some cold water on my face. This is not my natural thing to talk about, but thank you guys all for showing up and listening to me ramble. It's fun. It's so nice. So nice. Such a blessing to be able to talk about these things with people that get it and that are on the same page. So again, if I said anything that was confusing in the videos and you need a little clarification, just let me know. And also keep in mind that all of our husbands are different. For example, like my sister is married to a man. In the relationship, she has a much stronger sex drive than he does for various reasons. And so their challenges are sort of flipped on their head. They're sort of the opposite of what some people might have. And that's actually not that rare. A lot of people have that. So just keep in mind, like when I'm talking about men, maybe it's a problem that you have and not he has. So again, just apply it as you can. Yes, good. I love it too. Nicole, we're going to go talk about NFP over in the chat. Continue to talk about struggles that you have with sex in general. But we'll talk about NFP. And for those that might be kind of beyond the years of fertility, we would love for you to still chime in if you have words of advice from all the wonderful experience you have. Or even we would love to hear, I mean, I think all of us plan to be married for a long time, and I know that different challenges arise in different seasons of life. So it would still be wonderful to hear from you. Okay? Really, don't think that you don't have something to say because you do. Also, NFP is not just something that we use to avoid having babies. It's something that we also use to try to conceive babies, which I'm sure a lot of people know. So when we're talking about NFP, keep that in mind. So if you are having struggle conceiving, if you struggle with infertility, which I know a lot of people talked about how that also has affected their sexual relationship, feel free to come in and talk about those things. For example, in my marriage, we have used NFP to both avoid and conceive. And we're in a season right now where we're really trying to conceive. So we're using NFP in that way. So I think all of us have kind of been on both sides of the coin with that one. Okay, so I'll go start the thread for NFP over there. We use Create and Model. That's what I know. I don't even know it that well, but I'll try. So if you are an expert, if we have any practitioners in the house, please raise your hand. If we have any zealous users and lovers, raise your hands too. If you don't know anything about NFP, it's a great time to learn. Okay? All right, ladies, thank you for joining me on a Wednesday. I hope you found a moment of quiet. Thanks for jumping on, Ellie. And maybe next week others will jump on. That's great. Okay, see you over there. Bye, guys.